Okay, folks, we all set, sorta? Who's got the, yeah, okay. All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this special meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Kincardine at 5 o'clock on December 3, 2025 in the Council Chambers at the Municipal Administration Centre. Roll call this evening. Deputy Mayor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Blackwell.
Present.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Present.
Councillor Hinchberger.
Present.
Councillor Prenger. Councillor Steinhoff Gray.
Present.
Councillor Stewart.
Present.
Councillor Williams.
Present.
Deputy Mayor, please.
We'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash, unceded First Nation, and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation, whose ancestors were the first to inhabit, care for, and live on this land. We recognize and deeply appreciate the contributions that Indigenous peoples have made, both in caring for this land and shaping and strengthening this community, our province, and our country. As a public service organization, we are dedicated to learning and acknowledging Indigenous history and culture, and are committed to actions that move us towards a journey of truth, healing, and reconciliation with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the Métis Nation of Ontario, and the historic Saugeen Métis.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All right, I'd like to remind council members to disclose any pecuniary interest now or as it arises through the meeting and the general nature thereof. With council's concurrence, the applicant, Ms. Von Cardinal, business item 3.1 Bravo, has asked to go first to accommodate some work commitments, and with council's consent, we would just flip that to the start of the agenda and then follow through the rest of it. Okay? All right, so we have, is Ms. Steeper with us this evening? Okay. We have Julie Steeper, Bruce County Planner, who's going to explain the report and recommendations. There's a process following, so following the presentation, council will have opportunity to ask specific technical questions of the planner, and then there will be a presentation from the applicant, if so desired, presentations from the public in support or in opposition to the recommendation. If there's any written submissions not already discussed, we'll hear from them. Then we'll have final questions or clarifications from council. All right, Ms. Steeper, please.
Thank you. The applications this evening propose to amend the official plan and the zoning bylaw to redesignate and rezone the subject property to core commercial area exception and residential 1 special. This would permit the existing residential uses. No new development is proposed with this application. If approved, the applications would permit 2 residential units without a principal commercial use on the subject lands. The applicant is seeking a residential zone because they've had difficulty in securing financing. Currently, the property does not permit a residential use without a commercial component. Staff are supportive of recognizing and permitting the existing residential use, including the established additional residential unit. It represents good planning practice as it reflects the current function of the site. However, staff do not support the proposed removal of the lands from the general commercial zone. These lands form part of the commercial land supply. A zoning that permits standalone residential uses should not represent a barrier for securing financing. The property is part of the municipality's supply of viable commercial designated land, and converting it to a residential zone would undermine the long-term viability and planning objectives. Comments were received from municipal staff that the preference would be to see a site-specific zone to permit the residential use in addition to the existing commercial permitted uses. This would provide flexibility in the future Developments that have already been approved exceed the residential forecast and demand, and there is potential shortcoming in the supply of commercial. The property could form part of the infill supply of commercial lands. In the official plan, all development and redevelopment in the downtown core area shall be directed toward retaining and improving economic viability of the core area. Seeking a rezoning for securing financing does not constitute a reason that has planning merit. I reflect that the area does compose both residential homes and commercial uses. However, I would suggest that if council would like to see the commercial corridor and this area differently, that they direct staff to do so, and it's done in a comprehensive fashion as opposed through an individual application. Public comments were received after my report was submitted, and the comments were forwarded to council. The comments specifically speak to the desire to see the property permit a residential use. I believe the applicant and their planner are there to speak to their application. Thank you.
I think council is aware that there are some sort of nuanced applications to this zoning applications, whether it's fully residential, fully partially commercial, those sorts of things. Would you prefer to ask questions of the county planner at this point, or would you prefer to hear the presentation from the applicant, and then you might be able to hear and compare and contrast? Is that a better option than just asking the planner the technical questions now? Okay, so perhaps we can do that at this point then. All right, so I would ask the applicant or their agent to come forward to make a presentation. Just give your name at the microphone there, please, before you start.
Good evening, Council. My name is Dana Kiefer. I'm a Senior Development Planner with Cobite Engineering, here on behalf of Scarlett Von Cardinal, who is the applicant in this case. Nuanced is a great word for it, Mayor Craig, so thanks for that word. We'll explain to you through this presentation why Scarlett is asking for a specific application and not what the county has proposed. So I'll maybe comment first on the title page as Jenna brings it up here. Ms. Von Cardinal has, it's unfortunate I had to take the pictures from Google Maps, but Ms. Von Cardinal has actually repaired the facade there, so it actually looks a lot better than it does maybe in that picture right now. So Julie maybe didn't get into the full background of how we've landed where we are, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. The subject lands contain a structure that was originally constructed as a single detached dwelling. So we think it was probably between the 40s and 60s it was constructed based on its form and appearance. At some point, following the introduction of modern planning regulations, the area was designated and zoned for commercial uses, rendering the dwelling legal nonconforming. In 2006, a small commercial use was introduced within the dwelling. As a result, the structure lost its legal nonconforming residential status, and a fully residential use was no longer permitted. Under the current zoning framework, a residential use is only permitted where it is accessory to a commercial use and situated above or behind it. The visual identity of the structure remains that of a single detached home with minimal features that would convey any commercial character. Next slide, please. So Ms. Von Cardinal purchased the property in 2024, and because the property's use was exclusively residential, an application was submitted to recognize that existing condition of the house and bring the property into conformity. Additionally, she encountered difficulty securing a mortgage due to the commercial zoning and sought a residential zoning to facilitate future lending. Submitted in support of the applications were written letters from CIBC stating they would not mortgage the property until it was zoned residential. The realtor who sold the property detailing that several offers were unable to secure financing due to the zoning, and the applicant and current owner detailing her struggle to mortgage the property. Therefore, the application seeks not only to recognize the existing use of the property and that residential dwelling, but specifically requests a residential zoning to address the additional lending concerns. Next slide, please. Just a site plan that would have been included. Next slide, please. So the county planner and myself do agree on the merits of the application. I am going to highlight a couple of supportive policies for you. The provincial planning statement permit and facilitates all types of residential intensification, including the development and redevelopment of underutilized commercial and institutional sites for residential use. Next slide, please. The Kincardine official plan permits additional complementary uses to be encouraged within downtown and adjacent areas, subject to meeting other objectives of the plan. Also permits the introduction of compatible non-commercial uses in appropriate locations within the municipality in order to create a vibrant mixed-use commercial/residential nodes. And importantly, the zoning bylaw in H1, the Kincardine official plan, says the zoning bylaw is not intended to zone each area initially for the ultimate use as designated by the plan. Generally, lands will be zoned to reflect existing uses when conditions are deemed suitable for development in accordance with the policies and land use designation of this plan. They will be rezoned into an appropriate category to permit the uses set forth within this plan. Next slide, please. So planning has both reactive and proactive elements. Therefore, it's important to review the area and the context of the subject lands when reviewing proposed land use changes. The following slide provides a figure depicting the approximate distribution of commercial and residential uses in the immediate vicinity. Notably, there is a transition to predominantly residential uses south of Mill Street. So you see with the green are residential uses, reds are commercial uses. So the block that it is contained in is largely residential. You also notice that anything to the north is also residential. That core corridor only runs down King Street or Highway 21. Next slide, please. So I'm going to take a step back, and we've gone through some policies. I'll give you some big picture planning considerations here. Okay, the structure has been used continuously for residential purposes throughout its lifespan. There was only a brief period of ancillary commercial use. While the area is designated and zoned for commercial purposes, it is predominantly characterized by residential uses, including legal nonconforming residences in the commercial designation and residential zoning to the east of the subject lands. In this context, it is my professional recommendation and that of the Bruce County Planner to conclude that the property can and should be recognized as residential. The distinction lies only in the implementation approach. My professional opinion is that the proposed recognition of the existing use, which is residential, and the condition will not compromise the stability or function of the commercial area. While our opinions are aligned in this regard, the overall merits of the application, we differ in how our recommended approach to implementation. It is important to note here that the official plan serves as the municipality's vision document and identifies the intended long-term use of properties. The zoning bylaw, in contrast, is the primary implementation tool. As confirmed in section H1, the zoning bylaw is not required to zone all lands for their ultimate intended use as set out by the official plan. Given that the official plan's designation is proposed to continue to support the property's potential for any commercial development, and additionally add residential permissions, is my professional opinion that the goals and objectives of the official plan are upheld. So therefore, if the property in the future wanted to have commercial uses, that is going to be supported still in the official plan. Given that the proposed use is exclusively for residential purposes, a residential zoning is appropriate. We can simply, to use a metaphor, call a spade spade. As a right of commercial opportunities remain available within a residential zone as well, including home occupations such as household and domestic arts, home occupations, professional uses, home-based childcare, and unlicensed childcare. So within a residential zone, there are still as of right commercial uses that will be obtainable to them, just not the full array that is permitted in the C1 zone. Should additional or more intensive commercial opportunities be desired in the future, a zoning bylaw amendment would be required. But importantly, that would be supported by the designation in the official plan. So should someone make an application to rezone that back to commercial, that would align with the official plan policies and be fairly easily supportable by the planners. So in conclusion, given the official plan designation is proposed to continue to support the property's potential for future development, and additionally add residential permissions, it's my professional opinion that the goals and objectives of the official plan are upheld. As confirmed in H1, the zoning bylaw is not required to zone all lands for the ultimate intended use as set out by the official plan. And finally, a residential zoning remains an appropriate tool to implement a residential use, and additionally provides the practical benefit of assisting Mrs. Von Cardinal in obtaining a mortgage at a residential rate. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that report. Council members, are there any technical questions that you have in regards to either of these applications, either the pros and cons or the, what does that really mean in the big picture? The other option here, if we're trying to get more information, is to put our manager of building smartness on the microphone. Do you have did the municipal staff develop a preferred path forward, or you are ambivalent to where we go on this one? Like they're both good decisions, but there's a few differences. Do you want to make any comment on this application before we go to more questions, manager?
I think just go to questions if you would like.
Any questions from council members? Do you want to hear some more? Oh, Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. I'm not in favor of, zoning it residential again and then zoning it back to commercial. We got to be careful about flip-flopping. I know the property quite well. I knew the Matheson family and everything. I'm a little bit confused about, it seems that there's a group here that really wants to keep it commercial, but I haven't seen a lot of commercial development going on in Tiverton, to be honest with you. And there's a lot of property. There's even a property right opposite this that's an old restaurant, which is zoned commercial, I believe, and it's been vacant for quite a long time. Surrounding this property is mostly residential. You're absolutely right. I was part of the team that we okayed the official plan, and we probably didn't even look at this property more than a megasecond, you know what I mean? But now it's front and center in our committee. This is a tough one, I don't understand the financial institutions, and I'm beyond that. I mean, I'd like to see that this person would be able to get a mortgage, whether it's commercial or residential, but I don't understand the ins and outs of the financial. This is a tough one for me, and, I think I'll let the other councils ask a lot of questions, because I'm not sure where I'm going with this one.
Okay, are there any presentations from the public, either in support or opposition? Like seriously, there's
I don't know.
There's good answers both ways. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak either in support? Well, let's go. Is there anyone who would like to speak in support of this application? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this presentation? Okay, well, here.
I was just going to say clarification.
Yes, just state your name, please.
Sam Finney, Century 21. So nothing to do with this one, but when you're talking about residential or commercial financing, 60% is the maximum that you can get on commercial financing, and your rates are higher. If you want residential, you can go up to 95% financing. So there's a big difference between 60 and 95%. So I think that's why in dealing with people, they're looking to see how much they can finance a property, and that's a difficult one to do.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, questions from council members. Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through your chair. I do think that I would really like to see Tiverton develop commercially. I agree with Councillor Stewart. There really hasn't been much progress on that. I can understand the way the zoning's been done in order to facilitate it happening in the future. A lot of my concern is about the planning report talks a lot about the commercial viability of the property, but in downtown Tiverton, this day and age, I can only really see things becoming commercially viable if it involves consolidation of properties. And this particular property is on a corner. It's bound to the east by residential property, to the south by a road. To the north, there's environmental protection zoned lands before you get to the next one. I really struggle with seeing it being commercially viable. And I think that I know it would be easy to say, well, look at what it's done for the last 15 years, but that gets into general considerations around Tiverton, so I won't do that. But I just think that in the circumstances, if we not just consider the applicant, but what's best for the village of Tiverton, in this case, I would support it being zoned residential.
Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I'm in complete alignment with the comments made by Councillor Hinchberger. I actually live in the village, and I have lived in the village my entire life. So I know that it's in the heart of residential, and for a lot of years, that house was residential before they added the showroom for the appliance store, which was really the only true commercial that I remember being there, and then going back to residential. And given the composition of the neighborhood and the fact that I don't see anyone who would be wanting a commercial use that would be willing to go forward with it, it does not make sense to let it continue in the state that it's in. The improvements are welcome.
Further comments? Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you, through you. So, one of the things I think when I read this report was, I think as both planners mentioned, the end goal for everyone is to enable a residential use of this property. I think everyone is generally been in alignment of that, even the comments made tonight around the table. And one of the things is generally I'm a very policy-focused person, and I like to be in alignment with that. And so initially, I was quite supportive of the planner's recommendation because it reflected my own experience of purchasing a property that was commercially zoned, but used for residential purposes. And I did a little bit more digging because I was confused, and I recognized that financial things shouldn't necessarily drive planning policy. But I also think in this element, I was surprised that I think mortgage rules have changed, and it is actually significantly harder to get. From the conversations that I've had, from the evidence presented by the applicant, it is much harder to get a mortgage for a commercially zoned property than I would have expected, and that was reflective of my own experience. So if the end goal is to enable this to be used residentially with commercial as a potential, which can still happen in an R1 zone within a restricted way, I think from my perspective, it's better to consider it residential because it's great to have a policy that is allowing it, but the real world implications don't always align quite as well. So I think if our end goal as a council, as a planner, and everything is to try and allow residential to happen on this property now, unfortunately, my thought process is residential zoning at this point seems to be the only way to actually get us there realistically.
Councillor Kavanaugh?
Thank you very much. And through the chair, I'll echo similar thoughts, perhaps adding a new wrinkle that perhaps this is something that as a whole, a future council should look at holistically, as the planner suggested, maybe reevaluate where we see that going. But right now, when both outcomes presented effectively get us to the same spot, but one of the paths forward helps the resident in question, I think I'm always going to lean that way. And so I think I'll be voting for residential.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, thank you very much, Council. You did a good job on this whole thing, and I agree. My fellow councillor next door, I mean, you know, the property is only a small sliver, really, of a building lot completely, and the rest is environmental. So, and thank you very much for the person in the audience talking about 50 and 90. I was not aware of that, but that's really a very, you know, the damaging thing. So I'm in favor, and I'll be voting for residential. Thank you. Well, we could make an amendment. Oh, we didn't have a motion?
No, there's nothing on the floor. There's nothing on the floor at this point because there's a little procedural glitch to this that we need to address before we even get to the rezoning application.
Is there two amendments?
Actually, there's a motion prior to that we need to address. Before we can approve any zoning amendment, we have to adopt an official plan amendment, which allows us to incorporate any zoning change into the amended official plan. So before we can allow any change of any sort to happen to the zoning, we have to pass this official plan amendment. So I'm going to ask, so we have to, I need a mover and seconder. the council adopt the official plan amendment L 2025-003 and the necessary bylaw be forwarded to Bruce County for approval. So we need Councillor Stewart and Councillor Steinoff Gray move that. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so now we can get to the zoning application. I have in front of me two. I think I will forward the application that says I need a mover and seconder that council approve zoning bylaw amendment said 2024-070 as requested by the applicant. And the necessary bylaw be forwarded to council for adoption. Moved by Councillor Steinoff, Gray, and Kavanagh. Immediately following, we will be passing the bylaw for that this evening. So it's not going to come forward at a different meeting. It will be tonight, subsequent to some of the other applications. Is there any further questions, comments about the motion? All in favor? And that is approved as per the applicant's application. Thank you very much for your work, your presentation tonight. Pardon me? We're doing those right now. Oh, okay. Do you have the, oh, right here. Okay. So we have the official plan amendment number 5 to the Kincardine official plan 2021 Vaughan Cardinal 98 King Street bylaw. We need a mover and seconder that the OPA number 5 to the official plan amendment number 5 to the Kincardine official plan 2021 Vaughan Cardinal 98 King Street bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2025 153, moved by Councillors Steinoff, Gray, and Stewart. Any discussion? All in favor? So that's carried. And then we have the amendment to the zoning bylaw. And we need a mover and seconder that the amendment to zoning bylaw 2025-052 Vaughan Cardinal bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, third time. Finally passed and numbered as bylaw number 2025-153? Four. Oh, we did 3. I can't count well. I can't remember. I can count fine. I can't remember. So that's moved by Councillor Kavanagh and Deputy Mayor Clark. Any further discussion to the amendment? All in favor? And that's passed. Very good. All right, we go back to the previous, to 3.1 Alpha. At this point, we have an application by Small Meadows at 440 Kincardine Ave. Karina Smith, who is our Bruce County planner, will explain the report and recommendations. We'll get comments. Once again, we'll have opportunities for council to ask the planner, presentations from the applicant, presentations from the public in support or in opposition. And then we'll have some final questions and clarification. And a resolution comes out of that. Okay, so we need a mover and seconder that council approves zoning bylaw amendment Z 2025-026 by Small Homes Communities, Inc., and the necessary bylaw be forwarded to council for adoption. And that council resolve that no further notice is necessary with respect to the minor change in the proposed zoning bylaw amendment in accordance with the provisions of Section 3417 of the Planning Act. Moved by Councillors Blackwell and Stewart. Karina, welcome this evening. Glad you're here.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. The application before you is a zoning bylaw amendment. The property is located just at the southwest corner of Kincardine Avenue and Adelaide Street. The applicant is seeking a rezoning to permit the development of a tiny home community. The property is 1.5 hectares in size. The applicant's proposing 64 tiny homes consisting of 16 single-unit buildings and 6 multi-unit buildings. They're also proposing accessory buildings for storage, laundry, and community use. There is an existing single detached dwelling on the property that will be retained, and that will be maintained for lease purposes as well as the other units. There are some existing accessory structures on the building, and those will be removed. Parking for the residential units is proposed in a central parking area that will be accessed from Adelaide Street. Adelaide Street is proposed to be upgraded to a cul-de-sac in this location. The subject lands are designated in the county official plan as primary urban communities and in the Kincardine official plan as residential. The policies of both those plans do support the proposed development, and so the application is considered to conform with those. The density of this development is 44 units per hectare, and that includes the single detached dwelling. The applicant has also proposed to rezone a portion of the property to R1. So the existing site is currently zoned Residential 1, or R1, and Environmental Protection 1, or EP1. The applicant is looking to maintain the R1 on a portion of the property to facilitate the severance of a single detached dwelling lot. The county is in receipt of a consent application for that severance, and we will be looking to circulate that shortly to required agencies and members of the public. The applicant is seeking to amend the zoning on the remaining portion of the site, specifically the R1 zone, to R6, Residential 6, and that is a new zone in the new zoning bylaw for the community. It is what we call the tiny home zone. And so the applicant is looking to permit 64 structural tiny homes with accessory buildings. There are special provisions proposed in the bylaw. The first is to permit a maximum of 64 structural tiny homes in one or more units per building. The zone currently doesn't specify the maximum or minimum number of units permitted on the lot, and that's why this specific provision is proposed. The zoning bylaw is also proposed to recognize the existing single detached dwelling and to increase the setbacks to the west compared to the standard R6 zone. And I'll give a little bit more detail on that. So the R6 zone currently requires a 2.4 meter setback to the western lot line. The applicant is proposing 8.3 meters in that location to provide a greater separation between the tiny home community buildings and the properties existing on to the west. The applicant is also proposing to reduce the setback on the opposite side, on the east side of the lot, from the required 3 meters adjacent to the Adelaide Street road allowance. The requirement is 5, and they're looking to reduce it to 3. Additional special provision in the zoning bylaw amendment is the proposed increase in building height. So the current R6 zone does permit a maximum building height of 7 meters. The applicant is looking for a height of 8 meters, and that would apply both to the tiny homes as well as accessory buildings. There was a provision requested to permit a maximum lot coverage of 25%. We have not included that provision in the bylaw before council today, and that is because the R6 zone actually permits a maximum lot coverage of 40%, and so relief is not required for that purpose. There was one provision added to the bylaw from what the applicant and their agent had proposed through their application, and that is the maximum lot area of the R6 zone. So this zone does have a maximum lot area, and the intent of that was to identify a maximum lot for an individual unit. In this case, all of the units proposed will be on one parcel. And so we did remove that or identify in the zoning bylaw that provision is not required. As it relates to other changes to the zoning bylaw, the applicant is looking to amend the Environmental Protection 1 zone, and that is to be facilitated through a floodplain analysis and cut-fill work on the site to physically relocate the floodplain on the property further to the south. And this will be done in accordance with a permit issued by the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. There has been a holding provision added to the zoning bylaw. The applicant is still working on the modeling and the necessary technical work that is required by the Conservation Authority. And so a holding provision is proposed to facilitate that work and the actual on-site earthworks as part of the technical work approved by the Conservation Authority and the municipality. The final holding provision that is proposed on this particular file relates to archaeological potential. And so the applicant did prepare, there has been prepared on this site a stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment. There was a recommendation from those studies that a stage 3 assessment be completed as a result of some Euro-Canadian artifacts that were found on the property. The applicant is waiting to hear back from the province as to whether or not that stage 3 assessment is required. So to facilitate the advancement of the zoning bylaw amendment, a holding provision is proposed, H1 specifically, which requires that assessment to be completed and the recommendations of the report undertaken. I'll leave that for now. I understand the agent and the applicant may provide some further words.
Any questions, or would you like to hear from the applicant or their agent that might answer some of those questions before we get to them? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. There's Euro-Canadian artifacts. Can you explain that? This is one of the first times I've heard that, and I'm a little bit confused. Is that, what is exactly, and how old are those artifacts?
Yes, thank you for the question through you, Mayor. The artifacts date back, I believe, sometime in the 1800s to some historic structures in that location.
Okay. Is the applicant or their agent here to speak to this application? Just say your name, Mr. Davidson, please, and we can...
I'm going to get tutored here. Oh. There we go. Can you hear me okay? Super. Thank you. So my name is Ron Davidson. I am a planning consultant, and I'm here representing the landowners, small home communities. With me tonight is Doug Edwards and Guy Lafond. And Doug's going to be speaking in a couple minutes about the project, basically who they are and why they're doing this. And also with us is Travis Burnside from Cobite Engineering. And Travis is going to say a few words as well. I think he's going to follow me. He's going to speak to a couple of issues that have come up, I think, from the neighbors with regard to the EP1 zoning, why that is changing or how it can be changed. And Travis is also going to say a few words about stormwater management. So I will begin, and I'll try not to duplicate too much what Karina has already said, and I'll probably be hopefully no more than 5 minutes here. So the project does involve 64 residences in the form of both detached dwellings and what we call multi-attached dwellings. The multi-attached dwellings are essentially very small two-story apartment buildings. So there'll be 16 detached dwellings, and those detached dwellings will be a mix of 1 and 2 stories. And then as for the multi-attached units or the small apartment buildings, there will be 6 of those buildings, and each having 2 stories and 8 units. The size of the units will be smaller than your average, on the most part anyways, smaller than the average detached dwelling or apartments. They'll range in size from just under 30 square meters to about 71.5 square meters. In terms of the ownership, the tenure, there will be a land lease arrangement. So what that means is, I'm not sure if Kincardine has seen that before. It's somewhat similar to a condominium, except the developer maintains ownership of the land. So the units will be sold. So if I was buying one, for example, I would end up owning the unit, but I would not own the land, and I would have to pay a monthly fee. And that fee would go to the developer, and that would go towards snow removal, grass cutting, as well as provision of garbage and recycling facilities or services, etc. In addition to selling homes to individuals, Doug and Guy are also proposing to actually provide an opportunity for individuals to rent them. So What'll happen is they'll sell all the units, but some people might not be interested in actually living at it. It'll be more living in them. There'll be more of an investment. So Doug Ingie's group will continue to. They will actually be responsible for renting them out. And the same arrangement works with regard to paying a monthly fee and small homes community looking after garbage and recycling, yard maintenance, etc. So these units will be managed by small homes communities and will likely be leased to Bruce Power employees who reside outside of Bruce Grey region, but also wish to have local accommodation through the week in order to reduce the amount of driving. That's referred to around here as workforce housing. The actual number of homes that will be leased as opposed to actual outright ownership occupied has not been determined. However, none of the detached dwellings, and those are the ones that are located on the west side of the parking lot, will be rentals. A few more things about the development. There'll be a laundry building and community center put up for the benefit of the tenants. The existing house on the property will remain, and it will be leased for residential purposes, and there'll be some sheds put up for the personal storage of the 11 detached dwellings, or the occupants of those 11 detached dwellings. As Karina said, the other existing buildings on the property, being the shed and a barn, they'll be removed. There will be a 6-foot-high fence erected along the west side of the property. That was a question that had come up in some of the letters that you have received. Backing up a little bit here, quite a bit of work has gone into this project. We've been working on it for a good couple of years now. And that background work includes the completion of a scoped environmental impact study that dealt with species at risk. As Karina said, there was a stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment that was completed. There's also a traffic impact study. And then there was quite a bit of engineering that has gone into this, and Travis will speak to that in a couple of minutes. Myself, I wrote the planning justification report. My job was to explain how this conforms with the county official plan, the local official plan, and the provincial planning statement. I'm not going to get into any great detail, but I will say just a couple of things with regard to those planning policy documents. All three, coming from the province, the county, and your local municipality, encourage a mix of housing types. You encourage a mix of housing tenures in terms of rental units and outright owned units. These documents encourage affordable housing, because we don't have enough of that, and also the efficient use of municipal services and the efficient use of serviced urban lands. As you heard from Karina, the property is designated mostly residential in the local official plan here. And your residential policies encourage, again, a variety of housing types and densities. So it should come as no surprise that there's a residential development proposed for the property, because the lands are designated residential. Some of it is zoned environmental. So again, going back to the official plans, both the county and the local official plan require a certain percentage of new housing within a development to be in the form of medium density housing, like townhouses and walk-up apartments like we're proposing. And there are certain minimum densities that must be achieved. So no longer can a developer come in front of council and look for a new subdivision with just single-family lots and big lots. Those days are over. It's also quite clear that this council is encouraging this type of housing because just recently you adopted a brand new comprehensive zoning bylaw, as Karina indicated, and I think that was within the last year. And it has a zone especially for this, the R6 zone, and it's encouraging smaller homes and smaller home communities just like this. And on that note, it's important to understand that an R6 zone for a development like this can only be applied to development within an urban area. You're not going to see this out in the countryside because your official plan doesn't allow for it. And it has to occur in an urban area, and it has to occur where full municipal services are readily available. And on that note, full municipal services are in fact readily available. Of course, the developer is on the hook for everything with regard to extending the services. And Karina mentioned that Adelaide Street needs to be extended. It's going to be by about 50 or 60 meters, and it'll terminate in the form of a cul-de-sac. And again, the developer's on the hook for that as well. The bottom line is the proposed development is strongly supported by the county official plan, the Kincardine official plan, and the provincial planning statement, and it seems to be encouraged by your own zoning bylaw. The last thing I'll do is talk about some of the concerns that were raised by the neighbors. There were 3 or 4 letters that were submitted. I'm not attempting to argue with them. That's not how I approach these council meetings, but rather just maybe shed some light on that. We will be hearing from the neighbors presumably in a few minutes, and maybe we'll be able to answer some of their questions after they're done speaking. One of the issues relates to the EP1 zone, otherwise known as the hazard zone, if you will, that applies to about 25% of the property. There's a comment that it would apply to a significant portion of the property. That's not true. It's about 25%. The boundary of the EP zone will be shifting, and the Saugeen Valley is satisfied with that. There's some more work that needs to go in, see the engineering, and again, Travis is going to speak to that. There'll be no buildings or structures constructed within the new EP zoned area. I should say this, though, I don't want to steal Travis's thunder, but the EP zone boundaries are not intended to be 100% rigid. Some flexibility can be considered through proper engineering, and like I said, the Conservation Authority, who gives us the hazard zoning, or in this case, the EP1 zone mapping, is satisfied that the boundary can be shifted. There are also concerns raised about the increased density in the area. I don't dispute that. Yes, the density will be increased. That's going to happen when you develop a property. And according to the official plan, that an increased density is not only expected, but it's actually encouraged if you read your official plan. And I just referenced that a couple minutes ago. And I realize that that doesn't always sit well with the neighbors. Furthermore, there's a comment made about an increase in traffic. Yes, there will be some more vehicles in the area because there'll be more people living in the area. I should note, though, the vehicles going in and out of the development will be utilizing a new entrance off of Adelaide Street, the reconstructed Adelaide. There'll be no traffic coming or going directly to and from Kincardine Avenue. There was a traffic impact study that I mentioned a minute ago. It was completed and it supports the development. Yeah, there was another comment that was made about the need for a fence, and like I said, there will be a fence put along the westerly boundary. It'll be 6 feet tall. That type of information is typically found in the site plan agreement, and that's for people that in the room here that don't know what that is. It's an agreement between the municipality and the developer. It's very specific, and it shows where the development's going to occur specifically, and it'll also address things like landscaping, buffering, fencing, etc., and lighting. I should note in conclusion, just before I sit down, that there was one letter, for what it's worth, that was submitted in support of the development. That was from the previous landowner, and they state that they are, quote, pleased that the new development will give people an opportunity to rent or own their own home. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Travis is going to say a few things now.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Yep, go ahead. Just once again, say your name for the record, please.
All right, thank you. My name is Travis Burnside. As Ron mentioned, I'm an engineer with Cobite Engineering. We are working with the development team, completing the engineering aspects. So, as Ron mentioned, I'm going to speak to the EP1 zoning as well as the stormwater. So, very early on in the process, when this group was looking at buying the property, we consulted with Saugeen Valley with regards to the EP1 zone and its function with regards to the floodplain mapping that was done a number of years ago in Kincardine. So, based on our review of the floodplain mapping, there's a very shallow floodplain during the Hurricane Hazel event. So in consultation with Saugeen Valley, we discussed the relocation of that. So what that means is the volume that currently would flood on the site is going to get shifted to the south end of the site. An area will be excavated closer to the water course that will allow the same volume of water to be stored in a more concentrated area at the south end, still within the development property, and allow a filling along the west side further north. So by doing that, the same volume is going to be provided of floodplain storage, and we're currently working on the modeling to prove that the velocities and depths on neighboring properties will not be impacted. So that's been discussed with Saugeen Valley. They've been involved in that process the whole way along, and we'll be doing the final review and sign off of the revised modeling prior to issuing a work permit that would allow the regrading to take place. So that's how we are working with the EP1 zone. So as a result of that, there will be some filling along the west side to build it up above that floodplain elevation to ensure that any of the new units are not impacted by the Hurricane Hazel flood event. That will lift the west side of the site and tip it towards the middle, which will drain towards the internal parking lot. All of the stormwater from the site will be collected in the internal parking lot, and there will be a stormwater management system located under the parking lot. It's a pipe system with clear stone, provides storage for all stormwater events up to and including the 100-year storm, which will then be controlled down to pre-development levels. So the peak runoff from the site is going to match what's out there right now in its vacant state with the few buildings that are on it. And that water will be piped directly to the water course to the south, so no neighboring properties will be impacted by runoff from this development. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Yeah, we've just received a ton of information from Mr. Davidson and Mr. Burnside. Are there any questions regarding the information that they've provided? There will likely be more coming from Mr. Edwards, but if are there any questions regarding the EP1 zone, stormwater management, et cetera? Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through your chair. I think my questions for Bruce County Planning. If you could describe, if, assuming, say, the council were to approve this tonight and a holding provision is applied to the property, how that sequence of events between approving a planning application and actually building is going to look like. Not the way it reads to me is nothing happens until the proponent demonstrates through technical analysis that the matters relating to how you're dealing with the natural hazard is dealt with.
Yes, thank you for the question through you, Mayor. So that's correct. So the holding provision allows for that additional study work to happen. So it would include the floodplain analysis as well as any further archaeological work that would need to be completed. So no development, no site alteration permitted on the property until that analysis work is completed. The holding provision has been reworded slightly from the typical for the floodplain analysis and the cut fill work that would then occur on the property, because typically a hold says no development, no site alteration until you do X, Y, and Z. In this case, we need them to actually do the cut fill work to demonstrate that they were relocating that floodplain to the agreed upon location. And so site alteration will be permitted for that purpose only. And then once that work is completed and the archaeological assessment work is completed or determined by the province that no further analysis is needed, then the holding can be lifted and the rest of the development can occur. In the meantime, I believe the site plan control process can continue and that work to satisfy the municipality can continue as well.
I'll throw one in and then I'll get back to you. Who has authority to remove the holding provision?
That was my question.
Oh, okay.
Through you, Mayor. Right now, the authority to do that is through council. So it's a report from my office through council recommending either they remove the holding provision or remains in place.
Interesting. Question, Councilor Hinchberger. Here's a free time to ask another question if you want.
I'll just add that, like, the way we still retain ultimate authority for this, I look at many of the comments are related around the management of the environmental protection zone related to the floodplain. We're not actually issuing a building permit. There's still a lot of work that actually be done. And we ultimately have the final authority based on a technical analysis that the floodplain or natural hazard issues have been addressed with before this body would consider approving it. So, yeah.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. I'm not sure, and through you, Chair, I'm not sure how to address this, but I think Karina or even my fellow councillor to my right might be able to help. I'm on the board of Saugeen Valley. I'm trying to understand this one sentence in the thing. It says, it is the opinion of Saugeen Valley Conservation Area staff that the application is premature without a technical review of the proposed post-development conditions of a regulatory floodplain. Could someone please explain that to me? It sounds like we get the development, then they're going to look at it again, and please help me with that, and you might be able to help me too.
Thank you for the question through you, Mayor. So essentially, my interpretation of that and through my discussion with SVCA staff is that typically we would want to see the floodplain analysis work completed in advance of receiving a zoning bylaw amendment application and actually deeming it complete and circulating it. Through pre-consultation, there were two options presented to the applicant to allow them to advance. One, do the floodplain analysis work before you submit your zoning bylaw amendment application, or the alternative is we apply the holding provision, which essentially prohibits them from doing work on the property until the floodplain analysis work is completed and the actual earthwork is completed. So SVCA's comment to say that it was premature is to say, ideally, we would like to see this work done as soon as possible. And we, through consultation with our office, determined that the holding provision would allow them to advance.
Follow up, please. Yeah, because the wording post-development, that means to me like it's already going to be developed and they're going to look at it again. But no, it says post-development, proposed. A little bit confusing. So they're going to do all the work prior to the build.
Yes, through you, Mayor. So the actual analysis work and the cut-fill calculations, as well as the actual earthwork, will be completed before the holding is removed, and then the ultimate development occurs.
Thank you.
Councillor Prenger, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I have a question, but I'll just provide a little bit extra information. So SVCA will need to give a permit for the work, and they will review the engineering report, which is the proposed post-development conditions, and they have to approve that before they can even start the site alterations. But the site alterations will be completed, and it will be confirmed to be completed according to their permit before the holding comes off.
They should have said that.
My question is, if something goes awry with this whole proposal and it actually doesn't move forward for some unforeseen reason, and we have now changed the EP based on a proposal, how does it get changed back?
Yes, thank you for the question. So the zoning is structured to look as if that is the final condition on the site. So if the work was not to occur, or they started and it wasn't completed, the holding provision would still apply, which essentially says no development, no site alteration. And so if someone else purchased the property or was looking to put a development in there, they would either need to complete that work or come in with another zoning application to rezone it to something else if they had a different proposal.
Okay, I'll just follow up. So I guess my problem is when they come in to look at it, they're going to look at it and it's going to have a certain EP zone on it, on a certain shape. They'll have to go back through the records and get the original shape to do their own engineering, to do their own work, because they'll be thinking that it's a certain location and they can work within. Do you know what I'm trying to get at? Sorry, I'm not articulating my thoughts very well. But my thought process is that I would prefer the holding be applied to the zoning as is, and I know it's administratively probably more cumbersome or burdensome to do it this way, but once the works were completed and approved, then when the holding comes off, the shape changes as well.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. I have a question about zoning, not about environmental questions or concerns. And perhaps I should know this. The R6 zone, do we have properties in Kincardine already zoned R6? And if not, what was our kind of plan or vision for kind of making those, creating those zones in general?
Thanks for you, Mayor. No, currently we do not have an R6 zone within the municipality. The intent behind that was with trying to make the zoning bylaw be more progressive, and by creating a zone that has some parameters that in the event we did receive a community development like this, they would have a baseline to go off of instead of a full-on creating it from ground zero. So that was the intent, to introduce an R6 zone with provisions. It definitely, there is not one though currently in effect.
Thank you. Would there be, I mean, I appreciate that we want to be responsive to developers' needs and interests, But would there be certain parts of the municipality that would be perhaps more amenable to R6 zoning than others? I don't know if that's a fair question.
Yes, thank you for the question. So the R6 zone would be permitted in any area where the official plan identifies a residential designation, so it could be applied broadly throughout the community.
Applied broadly, full municipal services. Yeah. Councillor Steinhoff, Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. There was just a comment made by the applicant's engineer that I thought it would clarify, if that's possible. It had talked about in the water calculation for the floodplain and what's going to go in the underground water storage under the parking lot. And I know a lot of the concerns around where the water goes currently, because I know we got a last-minute submission about water coming up and over the curb on one property, so it's already flooding with storm events. And if I heard correctly, you said it was based on current off-run, but once you have it developed, there'd be less places for the water to go. Therein, wouldn't you need a higher capacity than the current? I just wanted to ask the question so that I better understood.
Yeah, Mr. Burnside, can you comment on that, please?
Yes, thank you for that. So there's stormwater management modeling done. So the first step is to model the existing condition, and that gives you runoff rates during various storm events that are in the engineering, the town's engineering standards. That gives you your baseline of what you have to meet. Then you model the post-development site with the houses, the parking lot, and determine, okay, you've got just for argument's sake, a 2 or 3 times runoff. Then you say, okay, we've got to get that back down to the original flow. How much volume do we need to store? You design a storage system that then has the volume to account for all the post-development runoff to get that peak flow rate back down to the original flow rate. In that, I'm not sure where the runoff was coming over the curb. There may be drainage issues in other properties around the area, but this site's going to get regraded so that all of the runoff is kept internally into the parking lot that runs down the middle of the site to our stormwater management chambers, which is separate than the EP1 zone that's going to be the floodplain storage. There are 2 different storage areas. One is a dugout area that's for the EP1 zone to satisfy Saugeen Valley, and then we have a underground storage chamber system that'll be under the parking lot to provide event-based stormwater management, and that will be piped all the way down to the water course so that it's not running overland onto people's properties.
Okay, Councillor Hinchberger, and then we'll go to the applicant, Mr. Edwards, and any community concerns following that, and then that'll generate a whole other set of questions. So, Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I think it's a bit of an unfortunate, depending on your perspective, or inescapable truth that if you're going to live in an urban settlement area, you can't expect that the environment around, wrong choice of words, the surroundings around you are going to remain static in perpetuity. And it's one thing to revise your official plan to enable, say, this type of development and to change your zoning bylaw to provide a provision for it, but it's a whole nother thing to actually cross that threshold and do it. There's been some discussion about the timing of amending the bylaw or doing the studies before. Just to try to put myself in a number of different heads here. One would be of the proponent. Until there was actually a precedent set in your municipality where something like this goes through, everything involved in this up to this point, till you do it, involves an investment on their part and risk. And so I can understand from a proponent's point of view, wanting to really feel out that council. It's like, okay, you put it up there conceptually, are you going to actually step across the threshold? So.
Well done.
So I'd like to invite the proponent, Mr. Edwards, to the microphone. And just as procedure, your name, please, sir.
Good evening. My name is Douglas Edwards. I'm one of the partners of Small Home Communities. Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to provide some comments about our Small Meadows community. I'd like to begin by expressing our appreciation to the Bruce County Planning Department for their housing concierge service for new developers. This service was valuable for us to work through the approvals process and provide feedback through the pre-development reviews. The Kincardine Planning Department also was invaluable in providing assistance to coordinate and host the pre-development meetings, as well as raising key issues for us to properly design the community. We are grateful to be recommended and selected by this council to receive support from the new Community Improvement Program. For us, this funding support is very much appreciated as we work towards building our community. The Small Meadows community is looking to create housing in a new and different way. First, modular construction of the homes. Home construction in a factory has several real benefits and results in high-quality homes at a lower price. Second, a land lease ownership structure, as mentioned, removes the cost of the land in the home purchase. Buyers own the house to live in without paying for the dirt underneath it. Land lease then reduces the total purchase price, resulting in a lower required down payment, monthly mortgage payments, and interest costs. The overall benefits of this approach creates safe, modern, energy-efficient housing at a significantly lower cost. We believe that the Small Meadows community addresses several of the pressing housing needs in Kincardine today: homes for the missing middle, seniors housing, and workforce housing. The Small Meadows community is designed to provide housing for the missing middle: young adults, single-income households, modest earners, and families who earn too much to qualify for assistance, but not enough to purchase a traditional home in today's market. The lower purchase price created by factory-built homes and leased land opens the door to real home ownership for this growing demographic. The single-level design of the Small Meadows homes provides an ideal solution for seniors looking to downsize. Many older residents want to remain in Kincardine, but cannot find accessible, low-maintenance, reasonably priced homes. Again, modular construction combined with the land lease approach significantly reduces the upfront cost of ownership and creates safe, energy-efficient homes that allow seniors to remain independent. Lastly, employers throughout Kincardine, from healthcare to hospitality to the Bruce Power supply chain, regularly report that their workers struggle to find attainable housing. When workers can't live locally, businesses lose staff, services are strained, and economic growth stalls. The modular homes planned for Small Meadows community again offer a modern, high-quality, and truly attainable option that helps workers live closer to their jobs. Overall, we think that the Small Meadows community is a forward-looking option to support many of the people in Kincardine to remain strong and a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. At this point, we're going to open the floor. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in opposition to the application? Yes, sir. Please come to the microphone. Just state your name into the record, please.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Michael Davaz. All right, so now I can shout for real. So my name is Michael Davaz, and my property is adjacent to the land that is being discussed in this proposal. I appreciate all the nice words about affordable housing to actually justify a private investment. You know, I really appreciate having the opportunity to voice my concerns here. You probably saw my email already. It's in the package. I do support the activities that this council is trying to push to offer more housing in our community. However, I do not support this rezoning proposal. A significant portion of the property in question is currently zoned EP1 or is EP2. It has been zoned that way for a reason. The Saugeen Conservation Authority confirmed in the report that EP1 zoning is appropriate. So it's kind of interesting how the English language works because everybody interprets the report differently. I didn't read that the Conservation Authority was actually supportive. They were amenable. I mean, amenable is not really supportive. It's a different word. It's not the same commitment or engagement. They do confirm that EP1 is appropriate in this case. The request here tonight to rezone this property is not for the betterment of the land, not for the betterment of the community. It's EP1 land for a reason, and not for the betterment of the neighbors around it. There's no analysis. We don't even know the impact it will have on our properties because we live there. Although it's not what they would like us to believe, the request to rezone is for only one purpose: to benefit the developers and make them a lot of money. We can all see that, okay? It's a private investment. It is not a charity. Rezoning this land is a permanent change. It could not be undone, which is one of the questions from one of the councillors. How do we, if we rezone now with no information and no analysis, how do we get it back to EP1? My concern is really around the EP1 zone. What happens with the currently zoned R1 is not of my concern at this time, which is a majority, as some of the technical folks, the majority of the land. If you start to actually allow people to build on EP1 land, you can undo it. And then you end up with potentially some challenges like we saw in the first case today, where we're kind of wondering, why did we make the decision on that zoning in the past? Something to consider. It cannot be taken lightly. Part of this application also requests deviation from the height limitation laid out in zoning bylaw. I believe it's 7 meters. And the coverage of R6 is 40%. It's kind of interesting because now we're talking about increasing the height limit, so putting more building, really, completely bypassing the 40%. Right? If you think about it, now you double the footprint because you allow the limitation. How can you cherry pick which regulation from which zoning you're going to use? Is it R1? Is it R6? Is it EP1? It's very, very confusing because we're kind of saying we can go above the 7 meters in R6 with a cover of 40%, which I think is going against the intent of the 40% in the first place. It's a little bit of math. Just think about it. Right? You're basically doubling the footprint. And you're allowing it by simply allowing to go against the limitations in the R6, which is 7 meters. You can't have it both ways. You know, the feedback from the planning department is also that coverage is limited to 40% in R6. And therefore, the proposed 25% coverage, which was actually a comment around the EP1 zone, would not be required. This is another case where we just cherry pick which kind of regulation we're going to enforce. You know, since there's a few colloquialism today, you cannot, I need to figure that one out. You cannot have your cake and eat it too, right? You have to pick. You can't go and cherry pick one regulation from one zoning and go and pick another one from another zoning. That's not the way it should work. And that's what you're asked to vote on today, with no analysis. Regulations are in place to protect properties being developed, but also existing properties. Deviating from these regulations mean that we are in an unknown state with no clear understanding of the impact to surrounding properties. At the end of the day, the proposal is about investors trying to maximize profits. I do not support the approach to go against our regulations or our requirements to enable a couple of private investors to optimize their return on investment. This is not a case of not in my backyard. This being said, if it was in your backyard, would you expect council to enforce the rules and the requirements? I'm asking our town council to enforce the expectation, maintain the EP1 land as it's currently zoned, and decline the deviation from the height limit. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Thank you.
Yeah. Mikhail, thank you very much for that presentation. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this? Yes, please come up to the microphone. Yep. Once again, say your name into the record, please.
It's on. Hi, Council, and everybody else, all of my neighbors. My name is Crystal Nolasco, and I think Mikhail covered very well our concerns with EP1. So I just wanted to quickly state where my concerns come from. My concerns really come from the fact that we keep calling this a community, but I seem to continue, as well as some of my neighbors, to feel the community feel here and how this really benefits the entire municipality. R6, brand new zone, pretty sure it was maybe brought into place by Spalding Meadows community. I appreciate that we need more housing. I also appreciate that we talk about retirement community mixed with rentals for plant workers, which are needed, with accessory dwellings to accessory dwellings with sheds, with a community building that is not small enough to do anything community related. So we have retired folks moving in here and they're gathering where? In the laundry room? There's no gardens, there's a lot of parking. That's, if we're going to have this R6 zone and make it for increased housing that feels like a community, this doesn't feel like the answer. That's it, thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. I was just reminded by our clerk, we do have a sign-in sheet. Is it on the side table? Yeah. It's on the side table back there, I believe. It's not back there? It's right here. Okay, behind you, on that other table behind you, Lori? Okay. If you would like to continue to receive information about the progress or not of this application, please sign your name on it before you leave so that you can be on the circulation list. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Good evening. Just say your name into the record, please.
You know who I am, Ken.
Of course I do, Diane.
Diane Pennington here. I'm a 26-year homeowner on Willow Road. Interesting, Mikhail did an excellent job of promoting this, but anyway, I'd like to refer back to your initial too when we were talking about Tiverton. EP land came up how many times? This is EP land, so what are you going to do? Allow it to continue? And I agree, I think it's way more than 20% depending on the latest Saugeen Valley map you get. Right behind my place, it's way out there, but I'm going to have a shed 5 meters from my fence line. I don't know. The stormwater thing, I don't understand. Is the water going somewhere or is it trapped? Is it in a bucket or is it going to the creek? That's a question I have. I don't understand that.
I'm sure Mr. Burnside can respond to that if in another, later this evening or in a communication with you.
And the other thing, it's my concern that on Willow Road, just south of my driveway, that the water cannot be taken away. Like when it does, we get the torrential downpours as we do, the water is over the curb. And it comes down, across my laneway, down into the bush. So the question is, if it can't take the water from Willow Road, how is it going to take it if it's all condensed behind us as well? You know, that's a legitimate question. The other thing is, and they're saying they're going to build up the land, build up the dirt on the west side. My backyard already slopes down. It already slopes down to my backyard from this property. So they build that up, how much more? I'm getting everything. All the runoff, which I don't care what your system says, it's still going to run off. And again, it already slopes down, so if you're going to build it up, then what? You know, what's the provision to stop that? Affordable housing, I don't know. To me, affordable housing means if you're a waitress, a teacher, a nurse, you can all afford that. This isn't going to be affordable housing, because what do Bruce Power workers pay a week? You know? What's that? How they're going to pay that, so how's anybody else going to compete for that, right, to rent any of those properties? So I think that's all I wanted to say, but it's just, you know, what checks and balances are there to keep it affordable housing in the town of Kincardine? And I have to agree, we can just willy-nilly throw environmental protected land away and decide it is. Well, no, it's not going to. Well, it is here, but not there. I don't know. It's a dangerous precedent. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Diane. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this? Hello there. Just come and say your name into the record, please.
Hi, I'm Karen Stewart. I'm here on behalf of my mom, Betty Jane Cato. She owns the property to the east of this property. She has 7 acres there. It's mostly all protected land. The only thing off of Adelaide Street on that side now is our driveway and our one neighbor's laneway to their house. And now we're going to have, what, 64 cars if each person has one? That's going to be a little bit congested to the driveway. We're going to be, from what I'm seeing, is our driveway is going to be part of a roundabout. I'm also concerned because the town has had a trail that runs down the laneway for years and years. It connects all of our town trails. That's now going to be, what, 64 cars or more coming and going down that trail constantly? Have they made any plans to put the trail down the side of the property, or, you know, maybe put up some trees for privacy? They're going to build a fence to the west, but what about us? The last people that wanted to buy this property were going to put up a 5-story apartment building. Our property at the time was for sale. We couldn't sell it because our real estate agent had to tell them about this development that was going in next door. We can't sell lots of ours because we're all protected land. And we can't even sell it as one house because we're going to have a development beside us that doesn't matter about protected land. Anyhow, that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this project? Anyone else? Is there anyone who would like to speak in support of this application? Anyone else? Okay. Council members, opportunity for questions. Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. And I apologize if I get this wrong. I've just jotted down a couple questions based on the comments that I've been hearing being made from the public address, so I'd like to ask a couple questions based on that. My first question would be for our planner, Karina. How common is it for a rezoning of EP1? Like, it sounds like we would have to undergo a lot to take what would be considered like the environmental to not being environmental. Like, how many applications like this come across the desk? Because I'd like to know how it fits into our normal standard of things.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. So I don't have an exact number on that, but both the official plan and the zoning bylaw do allow for modifications to the EP1 lands, which are the hazard lands, and that would be done in consultation and to the satisfaction of the chief building official as well as the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, and that if there is adjustment to that, it is typically as a result of a technical study, so either updated survey work or floodplain analysis, and so those modifications can occur. In this case, because they were also coming in with the zoning bylaw amendment, we looked at options and how to capture the EP, both in whether it's in its existing configuration or what the ultimate final proposal is.
Yeah, I have one additional question based on that. So I understand that this is not completely brand new to us, so there is a process that lays this out. I guess my other question, just based on when we're talking about the standards and the rules, to the point made about the 7 meters versus 8 meters, like 8 meters is basically 2 stories, and when you look at if we went forward with this development, I don't see any other areas where similar type development would go up. So, like, that height is like 2 full stories, I think. Like, wouldn't it be significantly higher than anything else that's in that community area right now? I'm just trying to understand. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. So the R6 zone, as you noted, does permit a height of 7 meters. The applicant's looking for 8, and that is to facilitate 1- and 2-story buildings that they are proposing on the site. So I believe the multi-story multi-unit buildings would be 2 stories, and the singles would be 1 story. For comparison, in the surrounding, or the current zoning on the property, R1, and in the surrounding lands, which are also zoned R1 for the most part, the maximum height permitted is 10.5 meters. And so conceivably in the R1 zone, you could have a building that would be higher than what is proposed on this site.
Councillor Pranger, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'll just upfront say that the hazard on this property is the floodplain. So a floodplain can be re-engineered technically. SVCA is, well, we don't promote it. It is open to this option, and the cut and fill approach is not a new approach. It seems scary, and I know there's a lot of pushback on it, but unfortunately it is allowed by the regulation, by SVCA's regulation. So I have a question for Travis, actually, from Cobite, if you don't mind, because I was struggling to understand this, so I'm assuming everybody else is, considering I used to review these and I know how to read your drawings and stuff, right? So there isn't any elevations or cross sections in the planning report or anything. So I'm trying to understand how, when the floodplain right now on the west side of the property does expand onto the neighboring properties, how we, when we're filling the property in question, how we are actually stopping the flooding that would, the amount that you calculate that would be on there, how we're stopping it at the property line. Like, what's the barrier that forces it onto the subject property and into your engineered area? Because it's going to go, I'm assuming there's going to be cut and fill, there's going to be filling so that it stops at where you want it to on the property, but it's still going to go up and around to the other properties. But then that means that, like, there has to be some kind of barrier to keep it from flooding back onto the subject property. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So the water course is south of the site. So in a Hurricane Hazel event, if we get another one, or I guess you could say when eventually, maybe not our lifetime, but at some point we'll get a storm event like that. The water level is obviously going to keep rising from the south and pushing water north. Our engineered areas at the south end of the site, so it's going to capture the runoff first before it travels north, and the final bit of volume that would be, like, any runoff or any flood volume that would be on the existing lots on Willow Road will remain there. There's going to be a swale inside property line on the subject site to convey any runoff that from those lots right now comes onto the site. Like, we can't block the just everyday rainfall that happens, so we have to convey that through the site, and it's still going to can get conveyed south to the wetland to the south. And then from there would be filling, so there'd be a swale. If this was the property line, there would be a swale, and then the grade would get built up above that SVCA floodplain elevation. So that'll be the barrier that stops it from going on to where the units are proposed. And that volume that's being lost by the filling is being compensated at the south end closer to where the water course is. So it's actually going to collect that runoff before it spreads out onto the neighbors as well. So there'll be an initial storage area that's going to see water more often on the development site than what would go to the north.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. I have a question for the proponent and then a comment. If it remained an R1 zone, would you still develop on the property?
Dwayne, could you comment on the number of residential units you can put on one R1 property?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Karina and I had done that calculation too, and looked at that, and 23 residential lots could be created. Now, that's foreseeable without any other provincial regulations being applied. We could maybe get 23 lots based on the minimum lot area for a residential one lot. That's a very baseline number without doing any further analysis.
Mr. Davison, please.
Yes, so my question, to answer that question is, Karina, if we presented a draft plan of subdivision to you with single-family lots, would you tell us that doesn't conform with the official plan, which says we have to achieve 30% medium density development and a lot, it's a rhetorical question, I shouldn't have said this was Karina, but the bottom line is you could not approve a draft plan of subdivision for this property with single-family lots. It's not allowed. Your official plan clearly states you've got to achieve a better density than that, and 30% of your units have to be in the form of at least townhouses, if not apartment buildings.
You had a comment, Councillor?
Sorry, I'm just trying to understand what that means. Maybe it's me just not fully appreciating our official plan. Right now, zoned as R1, a developer would not be able to develop on that property. Is that an accurate statement, or it's not clear to me?
So the short answer, like the layman's answer is, yeah, you can, actually, but you theoretically you could, but as soon as you apply for it, you'll get denied because it doesn't fulfill the intent of our official plan and zoning law bylaws, so you can't do it. Comment?
So I'm still a little bit confused, but that's all right. So I actually really struggled with this one because I know that we need more houses, especially for workers. And I know we need to prepare for growth. And, if you move workers into housing like this, then it creates more opportunity for housing in other areas, making it available for other users. And I actually do like this model. I think it's a really interesting model. And I think it's probably a great model knowing kind of what the influx of workers might look like. But just given everything that we've talked about today and given the location, I don't think this is the right property for this kind of development. I don't really understand what it is for, just based on, I don't clearly understand why it's zoned something that we can't do anything with. But anyways, I just don't think that we should be building something this dense on a property like that. There should be other areas in the community more suitable for development like this.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I want to just touch on the density piece there for a minute. Previously, a member of the public indicated that there had been a 5-story apartment building as a potential application on that land. The other is, you said 23 single-family houses could be built. Is that accounting for the reality of under planning provincial, which is 3 lots as of right, so that would be 69 units potentially?
Okay, so let's
Like, this
stop, no, stop this conversation now. We're going down a road that has seriously nothing to do with the application. So don't address that question. I'm not going to allow, because it's a hypothetical that is only confuses the issue.
Well, can I finish my thought?
Carefully, yes?
Okay, so sorry, I think my point more is around the, when we're talking about the density of this property and the density of this development. I would suggest that it's not as dense as it could be or as other applications would have been. I think that the density, especially with the way that it's being set up with the single-family units, is actually fairly compliant with the surrounding area. So it's an area that has townhouses, it has small apartment buildings. This is an area that has a lot of mixed use already. It feels like a community and a neighborhood where this kind of housing would be appropriate. If not here, I'm not entirely sure where. And I think more so, like one of my questions more so is we're waiting for the holding provision for Saugeen Valley. So obviously, it's not necessarily us that's changing the EP1 zoning. We're doing it with partnership with Saugeen Valley. So the justification of the argument that, Saugeen Valley applied this, it's also Saugeen Valley that would be approving its removal. Is that correct, that understanding?
Yes, that's correct.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And I'd like to just sort of expand on that. I'm a board member of Saugeen Valley along with my fellow councillor. And this is a real problem, and we're facing this all the time. Just to give you some background, a couple of years ago, I think we took, 20,000 acres away from the floodplains and everything. The mapping wasn't the best. And I'm sorry to tell you, the mapping was done way back in Hurricane. I don't think we've updated it. We've never asked for technical drawings or anything to really take a look at the town of Kincardine. Yeah, and the Saugeen Valley mapping of floodplains is being questioned now. And it's not a question they're changing it, it's a question they're removing it. And this is one of the problems that we face all the time. So you get people buying something thinking their backyard's EP1. And that's what it says on our zoning and everything, an official plan. Then a developer comes along and says, okay, could it be? And Saugeen Valley takes another technical look at it and say, it could be if you did this, this, and this. Is it fair? I don't know. But we're going to have to make a pretty tough decision tonight to say yes or no to it. Thank you.
Councillor Hinchberger, please, and then Deputy Mayor Clark.
I think in my 3 years on council, this would be the best example of what I sometimes say to my colleagues is, what are the barriers between a good idea and making it happen? One is, who has the means? 2, who owns the property? And 3, what do the neighbors think? And because we're ultimately going to vote on this, I'm going to address Councillor Williams' comment in here. There's always probably a better place, the best place. But we've chosen as a society that we're not living in a communist state or a socialist state. The government can't just decide where it's going to do and do something. We value private ownership. And as a result, because we've made that choice, we're going to run into circumstances which probably aren't ideal if you were starting absolutely from scratch. I just use the one last thing, I'll use the nuclear industry as an example. Nuclear operators operate according to a license that they're given by the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. It's based on a safety analysis report, and the safety analysis report, we've been sharpening pencils and fine-tuning analysis to maintain margins of safety and demonstrating and getting licenses for it for decades. So this notion that the environmental protection boundary is something that is immutable and cast in stone is rubbish. And to say that you want to adjust it isn't somehow a nefarious or corrupt thing. It's done according to a process, and sure, it should be challenged, but this type of thing happens elsewhere in our society.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I first of all want to address those who have come to support, to speak in opposition. It's so important to have the public engagement, and I'm thankful that you have taken the time to come out and voice your concerns. It's certainly been food for thought. The primary concern that I have heard this evening has been the question about whether or not there can be the redesignation of an EP1. It's clear that that can occur. So from my perspective, I think when I look at this is, if this were to be turned down, I'm always sort of, I guess, legalistically thinking of what would be the justifications on an appeal effectively. And I'm wondering what the other concerns are. I heard a little bit about effectively some concerns about the flood water plain. I wonder if the holding provisions that are being suggested at the moment, I mean, it's clear that, and I take Mikhail's point, amenable is perhaps different than support, but equally there have been considerations that could be put in place. So we're not putting perhaps the cart before the horse, but I'd be interested in knowing whether or not the provisions, or that's certainly the holding provisions with potentially some other considerations, would help alleviate some of the concerns, or whether it is primarily focused on, effectively, is it just to change or redesignate from an EP1? And I think in my mind that's perhaps a little bit more of a challenging argument than some other substantive arguments as to whether or not they can be addressed in another method. So through you, Mayor, I wonder if there is the opportunity, and there may not be, but I address this particularly to Mikhail, whether or not there are any other concerns. I don't know if you would permit a member of the public to respond to that. The answer is no. So that I will leave it with members of the council if they have any thought processes on that.
I'm going to go to Councillor Prenger and then Steinhoff Gray. You did have your hand up.
Yes, I did. Thank you. I was taking another look at the bigger site plan. A point of clarification, and my understanding is that King Garden has actual floodplain mapping for this water course. So it's not just a high-level guess at where the floodplain would be. I think Dwayne might be able to confirm that, I'm not sure, or maybe our planner. But the way to have that boundary moved is through engineering and design, which is what they're going through. And while, just a comment to the fact that, I guess what Councillor Hinchberger said is that, correct, yes, the EP zone can be changed. And what is being changed, exactly, it's being proposed to be changed with analysis that legally requires neighboring properties not be negatively impacted. So if the engineering is done incorrectly, or if the construction and site alterations are not completed in alignment with the engineering, then somebody is responsible. So in theory, there should be absolutely no negative impacts on neighboring properties due to this proposal.
Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I don't really want to necessarily get into the arguments yet, because I think there's still a few questions that I had recorded that I really would like to ask, just because I don't think we've given answers based on the public inquiries that were provided. There was one very clear question asked about where the water's outletting to, and if it's that creek that's behind the property. And I did not hear a clear answer of that outlet, and I'm sure that it was there, but I would just like that clearly answered, because it was a question asked.
Mr. Burnside, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The outlet will be to the creek, and the storms will be directed down Adelaide Street, the existing Adelaide Street right-of-way that the municipality owns. Yeah, and I can't speak to what's on Willow Road with drainage issues, because it's kind of outside the scope of what we've reviewed as part of this development.
Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
So just a quick question for our planner. So would you be able to comment on whether the water that's backing up on Willow is outletting to the same creek? Or Is it just a stormwater drain there? I'd like better clarity. Thank you.
Thank you through you, Mayor. I'm not necessarily sure I can answer that question fully. Typically, stormwater infrastructure for a municipality is only designed to contain or convey flows up to a certain storm event. I'd perhaps defer to the applicant's engineer to speak to that just more generally if he's able to.
I think if I may, if I read the design right, any water events on Willow Street are independent from the development itself, like the drainage works that you're proposing aren't in response to their flooding events at this time. It's to manage the water of the proposed development.
Yes, that's correct. And maybe just to add on to what Karina was saying, so storm sewer design for any new infrastructure that either developers putting in or the municipality is doing, the storm sewer is designed to a 5-year storm event. But again, I don't know what's out on Willow Road and what's causing the issues on the road allowance itself.
Yeah, Councillor, please.
Just based on the comments on Adelaide and the fact that I believe I heard, and I could be confused, that the road allowance that we're speaking to, we wanted to reduce the setback from 3 meters to 5 meters. Is there any impact to that from perspective of that road allowance? Because we're allowing it closer, I guess, to the road allowance than we normally would, based on what we're doing here. I'm trying to, all the comments that have been had, I'm trying to make sure that we all have clear perception.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor. So through pre-consultation discussions, there were conversations had in terms of how to mitigate any potential concerns from the neighbors to the west. And so there was that shift of the development providing a greater setback to those neighbors, but a lesser setback to the road allowance. That reduced setback was reviewed by municipal staff through the pre-consultation process. And given the condition of Adelaide and the expectation that it's not going to be put fully through to the road to the south, and that it would be terminated in a cul-de-sac, that a reduced setback to that road allowance would be appropriate. The largest concern is obviously sight lines, but also snow removal, and with the expectation that the road is going to terminate at that cul-de-sac for the foreseeable future. If this is approved, municipal staff were satisfied with that reduction.
So just to confirm, that setback is reduced to the lot line? Like it's not to the road or the side of the road, that's to the easterly edge of the property itself? Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. There was the other comment made that I listened from the galley on the what did I do? Gallery, sorry. Sorry, I apologize. Sorry, lost my train of thought. Thank you, Hinchberger. No, the trail is a concern, but this next question was in relationship to the comment about the fence, why we're doing one wall of a fence, because I know a similar development proposed in, not small, but a development with townhouses and such in the village of Tiverton, the Carn development, that includes a fence around the entire perimeter. So I'd like to understand where the fencing and the bylaw comes into play. I'm assuming there's some kind of standard there. That would be for you, Dwayne.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. The fencing issue would come up during the site plan control process. I'm not sure I don't think Travis has proposed within the stormwater management retention. That fencing is probably strictly through the site plan development stages.
Yeah, but the question is, I think, why is there not a fence on the eastern side of the development? Is that because there's a road there? Like there's a fence on the western side? Why not on the eastern side? That was the concern that Ms. Stewart raised.
And through you, Mayor, right now on the proposed site plan, I see there's no fence proposed on the east side, nor is there one required under the zoning bylaw from separations of two residential zones. if it was a commercial or industrial property, there would be a requirement for buffering, whether it be a planting strip or a fence, but not in this case.
So there's no legal requirement for a fence there? Okay. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I don't know if other folks have technical questions left or not, but I'd rather just make a comment. This has been a really interesting proposal. I've followed it through. Actually, it was initially proposed to fellow Ward 1 Councillor Doug Kennedy way back near the beginning of our term. And it's been quite eye-opening for me to see the process of going from an idea to bringing to this stage, and the amount of work and technical designs and things that have gone into it. And I do want to thank the developers for showing interest in our community and trying something new. I think that's really, from the best of my knowledge, this would be the first tiny home community in Bruce County. This may be the first land lease community in Bruce County. And I think there has been a very strong desire from them to listen to the community, not just necessarily the adjacent neighbors, but broader community in terms of the need for workforce housing, affordable housing. I think there's a really, really strong need for this. I think one of the things that I get asked sometimes as a counselor is, what have you done for affordable housing? And generally we talk a lot about, we're not necessarily able to approve price points, we're not necessarily able to restrict things in that way. But when a developer proposes something that is affordable housing during an affordable housing crisis, recognizing that we can't maintain or have restrictions on that beyond if they want to avoid development charges, I think it behooves us to support it, because we have people in our community that can't be here tonight because they're working a second job, who are looking for this kind of housing, who can't be here because they're with their kids in a shared housing situation. We have seniors that are looking to downsize, who don't drive anymore, who might be interested in sharing a space or in moving into this kind of community. So I recognize that, and I appreciate the comments from the neighbors. I do think many of them can be addressed through the engineering. And I think this is something that, I'll come out in strong support of, because I think we have a need for this kind of missing middle housing in our community, and I'd like to be a part of trying to address the incredible need for that locally.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Comment before I call the vote. It's not really the first one. Just to help everyone out, we also have another development in Tiverton called Pine Tree. And the only thing that's holding that back, it's not a zoning, it is basically a settlement map that our county friends have not approved their official plan, but it's holding back probably over 60 affordable lots that we could put in. I'm sorry, Karina, but you can take that message back to Claire that we need this thing too, because this would be number 1 and number 2. And I'd like to call a vote, please.
Okay, we've had a request to call the question.
Mayor, may I just add 2 points?
Well, yes, Karina.
Just 2 things that I wanted to highlight for this council. You did hear from Diane Pennington this evening. Just wanted to note that her comments were provided in writing as well. They weren't included in the agenda package, but were forwarded to you earlier this week. And then just one additional comment from the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. I noted in the report that they had reviewed the stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment. They have confirmed they have no further comments.
Who moved and seconded this? So the resolution is moved by Councillor Stewart and Councillor Blackwell. Council approves zoning amendment Z 2025-26 by Small Homes Community, and the necessary bylaw be forwarded to council for adoption, and that council resolve that no further notice is necessary with respect to the minor change in the proposed zoning bylaw amendment in accordance with the provisions of Section 3417 of the Planning Act. All in favor of supporting the application, please indicate. Any opposed? And that is carried. Congratulations. Welcome to Kincardine still.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. No, not yet. Not yet. We're going to do the bylaw. Yep. Oh, was it there again? Amendment to the, if defeated above. Oh, okay, so we need a mover and seconder. Okay, we need a mover and seconder. Amanda's not here. We need a mover and seconder that the amendment to zoning bylaw 2025-052 small home community bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw number 2025-155. Councillor Blackwell and Kavanaugh, any discussion? All in favor? And that is, any opposed? That's carried. Yeah, 5-minute bio break. That would be great. No, there's a couple of other ones regarding building fees and side road, Burvey Side Road. Okay, council members, it's time. Okie dokie, council members. Back at her. Yes, you're excused for like 38 seconds.
Oh, no, they're outside the door. Can I get in there to get the word?
Okay, council members, here we go. All right, thank you. Welcome back. We move on to the 2026 building rates and fees amending bylaw. We need a mover and seconder that the 2026 rates and fees amendment bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2025-156. Councillor Blackwell and Councillor Hinchberger. Discussion. All in favor?
No. All in favor?
Oh, sure.
And that's carried. 543 Burvey Side Road Agreement of Purchase and Sale Bylaw Resolution. We need a mover and seconder that the 543 Burvey Side Road Agreement of Purchase and Sale Bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as Bylaw 2025-157. Hinchberger and Kavanaugh, any discussion? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I have an issue with us selling property that needs to have a severance and maybe even a rezoning, because it's OS right now, so it's open space. Is there a potential conflict? I mean, you know, if we're selling property, you know, it's public property, shouldn't we really sort of do that necessary thing and then sell it? There might be value added. The problem is that we sell the property and then we have to go through county, of course, for the severance, but we have to prove that. And then if there's a, you know, a zoning amendment, which probably will be, we have to approve that. Are we not sort of walking a fine line here? Because, you know, what happens if we say, well, no, we're not going to allow that, but we sold him the property? So, you know, I'd like to know exactly if we're willing to sell the property to this gentleman, what is his wishes, you know, instead of just selling and say, well, you're going to have to take the risk. Is that what we're doing? We're going to sell the property and say, you're going to take the risk?
So in my perfect world, the answer is you buy it as is, where is, but I'm going to defer to the clerk. Do you have any,
No, she's gone.
or Dwayne, regarding, you know, do we have any obligation to do anything as far as zoning or severance or anything? We've identified a piece of property and we've said, you know, you want to bid on it, and somebody did. Like, other than that, like if they choose to, like if they want to zone it skyscraper city and come to us and we say, no, like that's we have that ability to do that. Can you speak to this, please, a little bit?
Sorry. Apologies for arriving late here. Was this on a specific property on the agenda, or is this a?
Yeah, this is the Burvey property, the parkland.
And I am unfamiliar with that one, I apologize, but speaking to if it's subject to any zoning bylaw amendment, that would have to come through council with those zoning provisions, and there would be every opportunity for council to approve it, listening to the provided evidence from the planner, to either approve it, support it, or deny it.
So the intent of the policy is as is, where is, like when the folks bought Birchwood, you know, they asked for more time to come back. They wanted to do another title search on it of some sort or other, and we extended that opportunity, but there was no request in that regard. So Councillor Prenger, please.
Thank you. I think, through you, Chair, I think the concern here is that the property the portion that we're selling is not yet severed. Like, it's a portion of a property that we own, so we're not selling the overall whole entire property. But you can't sell a property that doesn't exist. So my understanding is that the bylaw says that we're resolving that the corporation of the municipality of Kincardine authorizes the sale of a portion of the land. Like, so we're authorizing this sale to go through. My guess, and I'm assuming here, so I might be made to look like but my guess is that the purchase is conditional upon the severance being approved. I mean, that would be my guess, because you can't buy something that hasn't been severed. So in theory, to be legal, I would assume that would have to be a condition. I'm not a lawyer, I might be wrong. So what I'm understanding is that this bylaw is allowing that whole process to happen, and that once it's severed, the sale will be final. And anyone can correct me, but that was what I was assuming is happening.
This sounds terrible. Do we need to defer this so the council's content with where we're going? Like this, we have the bylaw before us that is agreed to by the purchaser. So the motion that went through council last week was that we accept the offer of the purchaser. So the purchaser is well aware of the conditions. Like, he has offered to spend X number of dollars on a piece of property. Like you, Councillor, I'm going to assume that staff has identified not to the surveyed inch, but this is the property that you're going to get for this price. So I have a couple of questions, but I'm satisfied. This bylaw would not be here if there was not a path forward, a legal path forward by council to move forward with the sale to the agreeance of both the purchaser and the seller for an agreed price. This is what you're going to get. Clerk, please.
Through you, Mayor, I believe the discussion was the amount of property, but it was where the actual boundaries would be. So I think that was the discussion on what they would then bring it back to actually sever that piece off. So we weren't telling people this is the piece that needed to be severed off. We were going to allow them to bring something back to us with it. And that was provided in a previous report to council.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So my guess is that the sale cannot be finalized legally until the severance has occurred. So I don't know which staff member is responsible for this. I'm sorry, I'm ignorant to that fact. Are they here, and can they answer what was in their offer exactly? Because the offer, we didn't get the offer in front of us, the actual legal paperwork. We got a report saying that this is what the offer said, how much. So, was it?
She's in Thames Centre.
Okay.
It's through the CAO's office that land disposition is carried out. Councillor Hinchberger.
Yeah, I just making sure I don't step on anything in here. I just quickly went back and looked at the purchase and sale agreement. There are provisions in there which address the concerns that have been raised here.
Yeah, really.
I'm sorry, Council. I'm
Go ahead.
reviewing the Jill's staff report. It was confirmed that lands adjacent to Burvyside Road had previously been occupied by a church. Staff consulted with Siskins and consulted the Land Registry Office to ensure all of the information on file for this property was accurate and to confirm viability as key factors in the disposition of this land. Staff concluded per the research in the documents on file that there's no evidence that there's any encumbrances with the property. Staff noted that the proposed severance of land on the received offer does not appear to be located in the western portion of Burvey Side Road, which is what was declared surplus. Okay. Staff received one offer. After legal review, it was recommended that this offer not be accepted. Oh,
Oh, that's new.
is that an old report?
No, don't say that out loud.
We're going to continue reading that
Oh, I remember that, yes. Oh, yeah.
We haven't discussed it.
Yeah, we haven't discussed that in open.
Are we not still enclosed? Oh, so that's my problem. I'm sorry.
Okay, so.
Apologies.
Turn off your mic.
Turn off your mic.
Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I'm just wondering if I can seek clarification of what the concern is. I know Councillor Stewart mentioned about whether it's viable to sell it without severance, but I'm not sure if that's the concern or if there's another concern.
Thank you. Through you, I do have some concerns because I think I know what this is going to end up with, and the zoning will be a tough one to get approved. The severance, this is a funny one because what you'd really probably do, and I think we've done that in the agreement, we sort of put conditions. But what you probably should have done at the beginning is just said, this gentleman has an option to purchase the property upon getting severance. You know, that's what basically it is, because if he doesn't get severance, this thing goes south real quick. And that's not up to us, but we do, I also have a concern because, you know, are we part of the problem? I mean, are we committing ourselves, like we're selling the property, are we saying, okay, when the severance come in, we have to vote yes?
No.
Okay, I'm just saying, so the severance comes through, this gentleman's bought the property at his risk, and we say no.
Then he didn't get the severance.
No,
are you saying no to the zoning change? You can't.
We could say no to the severance, and we could say no to the zoning change. And no to the severance just goes to the tribunal. So I'm just saying that it puts us in an awkward position that once we say yes, we're saying yes all the way.
We approved in principle the concept of selling a piece of property. And as part of that approval in principle is agreeing with the land that is severed. It is, and my idea, the clerk informed me, once again, there is a time frame on this. So if we defer this, then the offer becomes void. So we would have to get them to renegotiate. So I'm going to suggest that we address this motion, that we acknowledge that both the seller and the purchaser have agreed to the conditions as is, where is, with the intent of severing a piece of property that meets their needs.
Because severance will take a year.
So be it, as is, where is. Councillor Kavanaugh.
I was wondering if I could call the vote on this.
You absolutely can. So we have a mover and seconder that the bylaw be deemed to be read first, second, third time, finally passed. All in favor?
Oh, record it, vote, please.
Okay.
Sorry, people on the-
Okay.
No.
So, nope. Yep. So, Stewart,
No.
Hinchberger,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Steinhoff Gray,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Blackwell,
Yes.
Pranger,
Yes.
and Mayor Craig.
Yes. I believe that passed, just squeaked through on that one. So,
That's a squeaker. I've been here before, it's okay. I have to represent board.
okay, so we need a mover and seconder. The council move into closed session pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as amended for the purpose of considering advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, specifically the W.E. Thompson lease, And further, that council return to regular open meeting upon completion, moved by Councilors Hinchberger and, no, you're not, Stewart.
You can go into.
We're just going into closed.
She can vote.
Blackwell. Blackwell.